Hey, thank you for joining me today. I'm going to take a few minutes here to explain the value add of embedded recruiting, RPO, or as we like to call it, borrower recruiter. So whether you're borrowing a fractional recruiter, one full-time recruiter, or several recruiters, there's a lot of significant value adds that I think a lot of organizations within SaaS, early stage to growth stage, are unaware of. So I want to break that down for you, whether you're an executive working for a SaaS company or you're a VC that is looking to provide platform support to your portfolio and want to guide them in the right direction so they can get great outcomes in a cash efficient way. So the first thing that I want to start with is that working with contingent recruiters can be highly inefficient. And so the most obvious point here is cost per hire. So let's say that you're hiring a bunch of engineers or a bunch of salespeople. You're looking at, I mean, this is super conservative, right? 125K. The reality is that base salary. The reality is that many times it's going to be higher, particularly on the engineering side, north of 150. If you're working with a contingent recruiting partner, your fee is going to be significant, right? You're looking at 20% of the base salary. If that's 125K, you're looking at 25K, or if you're looking at 150K base salary, then it's going to cost you 30 grand. Most RPO embedded recruiting solutions are going to run you between 5 to 10,000 cost per hire. So just for a quick thought experiment, let's take something relatively low volume on an annual basis. If you need to make 20 hires through an agency, 125 times 20 at 20% is going to give you a 500K fee on the contingent side. 500K, and that's with an average base salary of 125, 20 hires. It's going to cost you 500K. If you do that through embedded recruiting, a model similar to the company that I run, you're going to see that come out to 20 hires come out to around 130K. Worst case scenario, you're looking at 200,000. And so let's take that worst case scenario number. That's, the contingent price is 150% more than what you're getting with an embedded recruiting model. So that's the primary value add. I would say that's one of the things that you should really slow down and focus on. But I have a few more points here. Another thing to consider is that embedded recruiters typically are higher quality than contingent recruiters. And the reason being is that embedded recruiting firms have a recurring revenue model. And what that allows us to do is to go out and hire recruiters with much better base salaries that are a lot more senior, because let's face it, in the US market, the best recruiters are not working for 50 to 60K base salaries, regardless of commission packages, right? Because, when you have enough experience, 10 years into your career, there comes a point in time where you need predictable income and you start to value that more. So the reality is that many of the best recruiters are not working for 50K. I'm not saying none of them are, but the vast majority aren't. So because embedded recruiting is a recurring revenue model, that enables me, for instance, to go out and hire very senior level recruiters with high base salaries. And so the quality of the recruiters on your team equal the quality of the results they can produce. The other point that I wanted to make is when you're working with an embedded recruiter, they're exclusively focused on your business. When you're working with a contingent recruiter, they might be working on 10 other openings. So think about that. If a contingent recruiter is working with 10 clients or at least 10 openings at a time, that means that are they working on each opening 4 hours a week? And you're paying a 30 grand cost per hire versus an embedded recruiting solution that actually has the time to understand your company culture, your industry, the future that you believe in and why your team is well positioned to thrive in that future. It provides a much better candidate experience versus a recruiter that just has a 2-sentence pitch and honestly just doesn't know really anything of value about your company or doesn't really understand the personalities of your hiring team. It's just a different level of quality, and that translates to the hiring manager experience, having a true senior level recruiting partner that they're able to work with day in and day out. The other value add that I wanted to slow down on is about 80 to 90%, I'll just take my company for example, 80 to 90% of the placements we help our clients make come from candidates we source. At this point in time for SaaS companies, the early stage, growth stage, vast majority of hires are going to come from outbound sourcing efforts on LinkedIn. There are other channels that do help. And of course, we want to optimize inbound as well. But about 80 to 90% of hires are probably going to come from candidates that a senior level recruiter is sourcing. That said, one of the value adds to embedded recruiting is that we don't actually care about where the candidate comes from. A contingent recruiter has a bias. They're going to try to push candidates on you that they source because that's how they earn a fee. Embedded recruiters actually manage the inbound candidate pipelines. So whether a candidate comes from an inbound channel or an outbound channel, either way, they're going through the same funnel. And at the end of the day, the best candidate is the one that gets the job, whether it's referral or they applied on the website or whatever it might be. The last value add, which is incredibly important, I'm going to compare it to internal recruiting. At least our solution as an embedded recruiting provider, we provide everything on a 30-day notice period. So when you go in-house to get a great recruiter, you're going to have to pay up, right? A high base salary. And not only are you unsure if that person's actually going to work out, but there's also almost an obligation, right? You're paying benefits. It's a little bit harder to lay people off due to performance if they're not performing. You know, recruiting, right, is not always a department where people want to add a lot of overhead cost. And so you have more of a fixed cost, excuse me, a fixed cost situation in which, you know, you're committed to that employee versus going with an RPO firm that you can scale up or down. An RPO, embedded recruiting, same thing, right? That you can scale up or down on a 30-day notice. The other aspect too is from a performance standpoint, internal recruiters are not usually measured as tightly when it comes to performance. You know, companies like my own are very performance focused. Everybody that we hire is client facing. And so if there are performance issues, they're addressed very quickly. And if we notice something in the weekly reporting that we do and we share with you, we would provide backup support, pull somebody else in. And in a scenario which we don't feel like we can correct course, we'd completely pull somebody off your business and plug somebody else in that we're positive, that, you know, very positive that could obviously produce a better result. The other aspect in it, you know, from just the performance aspect and the flexibility is our head of delivery, having a fractional head of delivery oversee the project. So whether you have a robust internal talent team or not, having a head of delivery on SecureVision's side or a company like mine can be very valuable because it's not like we're just, you know, our embedded recruiting firm isn't just plugging in a recruiter. At least the good ones are going to be doing performance management, pulling together data, reporting on that to you weekly. And so having that fractional head of delivery, customer success that can help guide strategy in some cases, or at least provide insights into what's working and what's not, can be incredibly valuable to your company. The last thing I would say is remember they're embedded, so they represent your brand. They're not reaching out as some contingent firm, right? They're reaching out as your company name. They have your company on their LinkedIn profile. They're working within your Slack and your applicant tracking system. They truly are operating as an internal recruiter would, but with the oversight of a head of customer success that's an expert, and it's more of a sure thing than taking a risk on an internal hire. So yeah, basically, right, you're getting a senior level recruiter focused on your business. You can get a specialist, somebody who focuses in tech, revenue, G&A. You're going to pay a fraction of the cost of the internal, or excuse me, of contingent recruiters. And I think that's primarily it. Of course, I could go on, but those are the biggest things that you need to consider. And I would highly recommend this, opposed to just going with what you've done before, moving forward with contingent partners or building out a big internal team. Consider starting to work with an embedded partner. And I don't know how many embedded firms do this, but we actually provide fractional support too. So if you don't need one or several full-time recruiters, you can also basically share a recruiter with one of our other clients to bring down that cost for you, and even to sometimes prove out the model before you go to one or several dedicated recruiters to your team. So anyways, yeah, if there's anything I can do, SecureVision can do to help, feel free to give us a shout, hit us up on our website. You can also find me on LinkedIn. And thanks for joining me today.